did you find, especially with like the current climate in which we're in now, like politically, about like race and all that sort of stuff, like the weight of telling telling the story of a real life character like this must be really quite heavy and something that, you know, a lot of people probably couldn't handle. So how did you like deal with the pressure of doing justice to this character and also like educating people? Because like, I'll be honest, I didn't know that much about Fred Hampton before I'd seen your film. It's not something I knew about.
It was a lot of pressure. And I think the only moments where I kind of let it go is when I realized it's bigger than me. And if it's making about you and the pressure that's on you, then you get in your head a bit and then you just overthink and then you're trying to do stuff because you want to look. It's just like, I'm a vessel and this is coming through me. For whatever reason, I don't know why I've been picked at this time and this story been made at this time, but this is coming through me and it's honoring that. And then when I operated on service, then I was able to actually just let go and just be in it. Tom, Avengers Endgame was a cultural event, a little shutdown. Marvel Cinematic Reset. What's it like shooting a film post that?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, the film I shot afterwards was Cherry, but with the same directors, which was really bizarre. I was really quite worried that they weren't going to be able to like transition from making a $500 million film to making a small indie film about a drug addict in Cleveland. But they were amazing. And then now we're obviously shooting Spider-Man 3, and it just feels the same. It just feels like we've picked up right where we left off. You know, they still have blue screens and they got loads of money and they make these massive movies and I'm hanging from wires all the time. So as far as the actual process of making the film goes, it feels the same. But how about for you? For like, my question for Black Panther is like, when you were making that film, you must have been aware that you guys were sitting on like one of the biggest and most cultural enriching like blockbuster movies of all time. Like, was that something you knew was happening, or was it a surprise when it came out?
I think it's something that we were aware that was bubbling. I think there was one day we did the waterfall scene, and obviously, like in between takes, everyone just stays on set, and it was like just hundreds of people on set. And then, but we had actual drummers, and in between the takes, they would play the beat for Snoop Dogg, "Drop It Like It's Hot."
No way.
And then everyone goes, like hundreds of people would literally do that.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, this isn't gonna be quiet. I was like, this is just. There was just an energy. I think everyone was just so. You felt that everyone felt so privileged to be a part of this moment. It felt like a moment. You felt like,
for sure.
You felt like, wow, we were able to show this world in the way that we see us, and and it being a Marvel superhero film. So you work with the Russo brothers on two very different kinds of films. And so what did they adapt their process? Because obviously, what was the budget of Cherry?
I couldn't tell you. It was, I mean, compared to a Marvel movie and then Avengers movie, like it was like a day's work for a Marvel.
It was less than 200 million. Less than 200 million.
Oh yeah, it was way less than 200 million.
Way less than 200 million. But so you're doing that, and like, that's fascinating to have those two different experiences with the same directors. Yeah, how was that process?
We didn't really have that much rehearsal time. We did a lot of rehearsal for the voiceover stuff because that really kind of steers the narrative of the story, and we had to get that right before we shot the film because otherwise it wouldn't make sense. They wouldn't marry together. As far as they go as directors on a film set like Cherry and a film set like Avengers, they're just the same, really. And it was just a joy to get to work with them on a much more personal level. I mean, when you're dangling upside down 40 feet in the middle of a battle, they give you notes from like a megaphone. They're like, Tom, look more this way. You need to look that way. And then you do a film like Cherry and you're sitting behind the monitors with the directors and they're nitpicking the most finest detail of your performance. So it's quite nice to have got to know them on a much more personal level. So it was nice to just spend some time with them that wasn't in front of a blue screen with like 3,000 people, and I wasn't wearing Lycra, not once, which was really nice.
You are in this kind of really fascinating position in your career where you could be movie star, and then you got this Cherry lane where you got like this really indie, personal, intimate story about like darkness of humanity.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, is it your aspiration to do both?
I mean, I think I will try and do both for as long as people will let me do both. You know, like I love making the Spider-Man films, and I think there's often quite a misconception that they're not. For me, they just seem like indie films with a lot more money. You know, we're still having to dig out characters and we're still having to try and figure out a storyline, but you just do it in a very, very different way. But I do foresee that like the future of my career will be doing films more like Cherry and being very selective with the type of work that I do. But at the moment, like I love making films like Spider-Man.
Can I ask a question? And this is like, I don't know if you've heard this question before, or maybe you have.
Yeah.
But I was like, when I found out your dad's a legend, yeah? So your dad's a legend.
My dad? Yeah.
Yeah, like growing up,
Yeah,
he's a legend. You know what I'm saying? So, like, what was that? It's kind of fascinating. Like, as a kid, what did you take from it? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, and for those who don't know, your dad's a comedian.
Yeah.
A really amazing comedian in England. So it's like, what did you take being his son and looking at him and seeing him? And then did you feel like you chose this? Was it as a response to what he was doing, or did you feel it was your choice?
Growing up as kids, we were kept very separate from my dad's career because like comedy happens at night, and then obviously as we turned 18, we would go and see him and be a larger part of his career. One thing I love about my dad being a comic and me being an actor is being a comic is so much harder than doing what we do. Like, you get something wrong on set, you just do it again. But you tell a joke on stage in front of 1,000 people that no one finds funny must be the most horrifying thing. I honestly can't imagine anything worse. And I remember I did this Comic-Con once in Brazil. It was like 10,000 people in the audience, and it was just me on stage for an hour, and I was chatting to them. And obviously at those kind of events, the audience will laugh at anything you say just because they're so on side. And I came off stage and was like, God, I'm so funny, man. I reckon I could be a comedian. And I rang my dad and was like, Dad, I'm going to try and do comedy. I think I could do it. And he was like, son, imagine doing a gig to like 6 people in Scunthorpe. You don't want to be a comedian.
Because it's like you having 2 different kinds of careers. That's what's quite exciting about it. The career is very stamped by you as an individual.
Yeah. For me, like as far as like my work goes, the people that I want to impress the most are my family, because they're really the only people that will like, and believe me, they have done. They'll see some of my films and be like, that wasn't our favorite, but like, well done. We're really proud of you. But the one thing that I really get hung up on is I really try to impress my dad on chat shows, because that's the only time that you can really kind of try and be like a comedian. So for me, the most stressful time is doing a chat show and then afterwards ringing my dad and being like, what do you think? Do you think that was funny? So I'm very lucky to have him in my corner. He's been a great role model for me, and he's sort of really done a good job of steering me away from the bullshit of Hollywood.
Because you can see the comic timing in your Spider-Man films. For me, it's clear as day that how you hit the lines and how it hit it with level, you know. And so, do you have like aspirations to do straight comedy at all, like in your future? Or,
I'd like to. I'd really like to. I'd be really scared of all the things. Like, it's much easier to do a nice, easy crying scene than it is to be funny in a film. So I would like to, and I'd like to do it with my dad. I think that'd be really fun if we could do it together.
That'd be amazing. That'd be amazing.
Like, I'd like to do a horror film, but I'm so terrified of what Get Out is like one of the only horror films I've ever really seen, and I love that film. But mate, I can't tell you how much sleep you stole from me. Honestly, like it took me a lot to get through that film because I was having to pause it and be like, okay, I don't do horror films at all. But that film again is like, that film is amazing. I love that film. Since I've seen it the first time, I've seen it like 5 or 6 times.
Oh, wicked.
Oh, mate,
it's amazing. You're not alone, because when the trailer for Get Out came out, all I had was friends texting me, I love you, I'm proud of you, I'm not watching it. Like,
I'm not watching that film.
I'm not watching this horror film, I'm not watching it. And it was just like, I really appreciate your honesty. That stresses me out. I ain't watching it.
So Get Out, you obviously got nominated for that, right? So that must have just like blown your mind. What was that like?
Mental, bro. It was mental.
That must have been, tell me about that. That must have been crazy.
It was surreal, man. It was surreal because it was just like, it's the last thing you think of when you're doing a $4.5 million horror film. That's indie, that's Blumhouse, and it's like, one location, and to go on that ride, because I ended up promoting that for like a year. And then that morning, like getting all those calls and texts and saying that I got nominated. I remember I was in bed.
Did you have any idea that you would get nominated? Like, what was that process like leading up to? Were you like checking like predictions for nominations or stuff?
I used to hear rumblings like from my team and stuff like that. You hear like, oh, it's looking good, it's looking this, it's looking that. But I just kind of like, with anything, Tom, I just kind of go with no expectations. Just kind of figuring out if I do, cool. If I don't, cool. Like, it's just, it's not personal.
What did you do to celebrate? You must have celebrated, no?
No, I didn't. What happened was I got excited, took my top off, FaceTime my mum. Then I was just up all day. But I was just like, I was hyped. I was just hyped. Like, it wasn't like I was trying to pretend. I was like, yo, I got nominated for an Oscar. This is wild, bro. And it's like,
crazy.
For me, when you go on those campaigns, you go and doing press, it's about the crew that are in Alabama that like work their ass off on it, and like you get to represent them, and they have an Academy Award nominated or Academy Award winning film on their resume now.
Isn't there like a dinner the night before or something? Nominees dinner.
We did one for Golden Globes. We had all the male nominees sat down. So all the male nominees were there, and like it was in LA, and that was really surreal. Because you could meet someone and go, hi, I'm Daniel. Goes, hi, I'm Tom. Like, it's just Tom Hanks. I'm like, yeah. You're Woody, bro.
I know. I know who you are, bro.
So you're Spider-Man, right? Let's keep it. Let's the elephant in the room. It's a spider in the room, and like you're out. What's that? What's that like? Come on, you're rolling. Like, how has your life changed in a real way? Not like how has your life changed?
There's like 3 stages of life changing.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, the audition process was horrible. Like, it was like 7 months, I think, worth of auditioning. I must have done 6 auditions. And you know what they're like. They just don't tell you anything. They just always tell you that you did a great job and they'll be in touch. And then 6 weeks will go by and you're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And then eventually I got a screen test in Atlanta. So I flew out to Atlanta. There's me and 6 other kids. And Downey was there. So we all tested with Downey, which was crazy. And it went so well. It went so well. Like, it's the best audition I've ever done. Like, him and I were riffing off of each other. Like, my agents had told me that Marvel like you to learn the words exactly. You can't improvise. You can't do any of that. So I learned the words exactly. And then on the first take, Downey just completely changed the scene. So we started riffing with each other. And I mean, to sound like a bit of a dick, I rang my mum afterwards and I was like, Mum, I think I got it. Like, that was like the best audition I've ever done. Like, that couldn't have gone any better. And then 6 weeks go by and I didn't hear anything. Like, nothing came through. So I kind of had predicted that I didn't get it. And there was all these polls online and I was definitely not the favourite to get the part from the public. And then they called us back and we had to do a fight test with Chris Evans. So they flew us back to Atlanta, me and one other guy, and we did this fight scene with Chris Evans, which was so surreal. And by that point, it had been an amazing enough of an experience that if I hadn't got the part, I would have felt like I'd at least achieved something to get to that point. I went out to play golf with my dad. I lost and I was upset. And I remember going on my computer, on my phone and checking Instagram, and Marvel had posted a picture of Spider-Man, of like the cartoon. And they said, go to our website to find out who the next Spider-Man is. And by this point, I kind of had assumed I hadn't got it because no one had called me. So I was like, oh, okay.
You find out in the press?
Yeah. I was like, I'll just go and check. So I got my computer and my dog was sitting next to me. I type in Marvel. I've still got the article saved on my computer. I did it and it says, we would like to introduce our new Spider-Man, Tom Holland. I broke my computer because I flipped up in the air. It fell off my bed. My dog went nuts. I ran downstairs. I was telling my family, I was like, I got it. I got the part. And obviously that was right about the time when Sony had got hacked. So my brother Harry, who's quite tech savvy, was like, no. There's no way that's real. They've been hacked. They would have told you. They would have called you. There's no way they would just put that online. And then my phone started ringing and the studio started calling me and gave me the news and it was all official. And yeah, mate, it was crazy. It was crazy. But the craziest thing is that I found out online the same way everyone else did. But no one had texted me prior to me finding out. Like, of all the people I know that could have texted me, I found out first. It was so bizarre how it happened. And then I got the job. I shot Civil War, which was like a week's work. And then from the moment of shooting Civil War to shooting Spider-Man Homecoming, I was convinced they were going to fire me. I don't know why. I'd finished the film. Civil War hadn't come out yet. And I just didn't hear anything from anyone. I just finished the film and it kind of like went home. And I was convinced for about a year that they were going to fire me. I don't know why. I can't really explain it. It was awful. But they didn't, obviously. But yeah, it's been crazy, mate. It's been the most wild roller coaster. But I've loved it. I've loved every minute of it. It's been amazing.
It's amazing. You're a great Spider-Man, man. Amazing,
Thank you, mate.
Spider-Man.
I hope that our characters will meet eventually.
Hopefully we'll have some crossover.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's mad that like two lads from London are like doing all this in Hollywood. It's crazy.
It's mental.